sake, to try to alleviate the sorrow, the heartache that comes when someone passes from our midst. And yet at the same time, what we are really doing is celebrating the fact that God in His goodness has sent this man to be part of our lives. And through Fred, God has revealed a lot of good qualities to all of us. He was born in 1938 in the South Pacific, the island of Guam, and finally he died here in 2009 in DuPont. He had spent 22 years active duty in the Army. He's had tours in Germany, Korea, twice in Vietnam. And finally he retired from the Army in 1984 from Fort Leonard Wood, which if any of you are Army people, we affectionately refer to as Fort Lost in the Woods. Any of you remember that? Most of you knew him just from his being here, for the years that he spent here in this community. Some of you, family and friends from years gone by, know him in different ways. But from my knowledge of him, he was a very quiet person, very deeply spiritual person, and he was could be very lively when he got involved in an activity. But for the most part, he was quiet. I think that's part of the fact that he was here, his family was out in other places, but he felt that he was here among friends. He didn't have to put on airs of any sort. He just lived here in peace and in happiness. He had 3 children, Brandon, Leslie, and Nick, and his wife is with us here today, his wife Patty, and some of his 6 grandchildren are here. The greatest gift that Fred has given to his family is his faith, and he shared that with the people who are here as residents at Patriarch's Landing. It's our knowledge and our awareness of God's presence that really gives purpose and meaning to our lives. Every one of us is on a journey. Where we start that journey, in Fred's case, it was Guam, 1938. Where we end that journey, a few days ago, 2009, in DuPont, the time, the dates, and the places of the beginning and the end of the journey are not the important part, but it's that dash in between the dates, and that dash in between the place of birth and death that are the important things. What he was able to do in cooperation with God's grace during those years, those 71 or 72 years, are the important things in his life. He stood before God a few days ago, was able to give an account of the time and the talent and the treasure that God had entrusted to him. And that's a good lesson for all of us. We're so overwhelmed with the needs of physical needs of the world today that we often forget about what is to come. I heard a story about a minister who said to one of his parishioners, "Maggie, you've got to start thinking about the hereafter." She said, "Oh, Pastor, I'm always thinking about the hereafter. I go into the kitchen and I stop and look around and I say, now what am I hereafter?" And I go into the bedroom and I look around and I say, and what am I hereafter? Well, that could be for us triggering the idea that we should be looking toward the hereafter, because what happens here on earth is not the important thing. It's the way we cooperate with God's grace that will lead us into eternal life. So I think Fred was one of those who, when he appeared before God, he heard those famous words from Matthew, "Enter into the kingdom prepared for you. For when I was hungry, you gave me to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. When I was sick or in prison, you visited me." That's all God calls us to do, to be kind and concerned about one another. And if we do, we will find when our time comes that we too will be welcomed into the eternal life. The third reading was the words of Jesus the night before he died. This is the hour of glory. So even though we look at death somewhat as the end of life, we know darn well that it's not the end of life. It's transition into the fullness of life. For those of us who have military background, we used to jokingly refer to it as the great PCS into the sky, that God is calling us to the next station, and that station is the best place we could ever be. So Jesus was talking about the end of his life as being the hour of glory for him. And for each one of us, the day we die is the hour of glory. We shouldn't fear death. We shouldn't be obsessed with death. We should look ahead to the hereafter, and we should pray that God will give us the grace to remain faithful until the day he calls each one of us. Some of his family, his children and his wife are here, so I would ask if Brandon is here, if he could say a few words about his father.
I thought this was going to be easy. First of all, on behalf of my family and myself, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. And it's comforting to us to see all these people that are here. To know that he had all these friends means a lot to us, and I know it meant a lot to him. And I know right now he's looking down saying, why are you doing this for me? Because that's not the kind of man he was. He was a simple, practical man that he's truly going to be missed, and maybe too small. He's truly going to be missed. And thank you again for coming out. And I know the sign out there says it's a memorial service for my dad, but it's a celebration of his life. So let's celebrate the time that he had here. And again, thank you from my family and myself. Thank you.